tried to talk, but my mic's not turned on, so I tried to tell them. We're ready to get started. If everyone will take their seats, please. If everyone will take their seats, we'll get started. Johnny, if you can take your seat, I think we'll be ready to get started. Thank you. I'm going to call us to order. And Mr. Ray, if you'll give us a roll call, please.
Trustee Hines.
Here.
Trustee Jones.
Here.
Trustee Lowry.
Here.
Can you simultaneously hear and speak to the board members?
Yes, I can.
Please identify any persons present in the location from which you are calling.
I'm here alone.
Please confirm that you received the board materials in advance of the meeting.
I did receive the board materials, yes.
All right. Thank you, sir. Trustee Lynn. Trustee Pardue.
Here.
Trustee Rose.
Here.
Trustee Stites.
Here.
Trustee Van Hooser.
Here.
Trustee Wilmore.
Here.
Chair Harper.
Here.
You got a full house, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you for being here. Those of you who are in person, thank you for coming in person. I really felt like we could have a better, more fulsome discussion, and I think we have. I also thank those of you who are joining us by Zoom. We appreciate that. I have several important recognitions to make before we get started with the material part of our meeting, so bear with me for just a minute. Do we have Deb Combs? Is she?
Yeah.
Deb, I think is going to be coming on by Zoom, or is that right?
Yes, she and Perna.
Okay, I saw Perna, but I don't see Deb.
Yes, Trudy, I'm on Zoom.
Oh, there she is. Okay, Deb, I'm glad you're here. Deb is not here in person, obviously, but we want to recognize Deb today. She's retiring as a full-time employee. She has served tech for 32 years. Radonna's got a pained expression on her face, and since she can't see us all, I want to be sure she knows that.
Can we vote against that?
There was not a vote, was there, Deb? She has served as the assistant to the board secretary for the inaugural Tennessee Tech Board of Trustees from 2017 to 2020. And I have a plaque for her here, but I'll read that in just a second. But I just want to say on a personal level, Deb, you are such an example of professionalism and commitment. I teach a class, as many of you know, in the electrical engineering department, and I try to teach my students about professionalism, and I wish that you could give that lecture yourself, because you are an absolute example of professionalism and commitment, and you wear your Tennessee Tech colors very proudly, and I feel so very honored to have gotten to serve alongside you. So let me read this plaque, and then I'm going to give you a chance to speak. It says, and I'm going to let you see it here in a second, but it says, "With deep appreciation for your time, service, and dedication to Tennessee Tech University and Tennessee Tech University's Board of Trustees, Deb Combs, Tennessee Tech University, 1989 to 2020, and inaugural Assistant Board Secretary, 2017 to 2020. So join me in thanking Deb, and then we'll give Deb a chance to say a couple of words.
Thank you all so much. It has been an honor to serve with this group of trustees and those whose terms have expired. I also want to express my deep appreciation to the many behind-the-scenes individuals who contribute to the success of board meetings. It truly takes a village to pull off a day of meetings, and these individuals have always provided reliable service. When I began working at Tennessee Tech in 1989, I would never have imagined that I would stay for 32 years, but I have enjoyed each of my roles on campus as new opportunities have presented themselves over the years. And I also appreciate those who have placed their confidence in me to fill those roles. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Deb. And Deb, it might just be a coincidence, but I don't know if we've ever started late before, and you weren't here, so that may be the reason. I'm not sure. Next, I want to recognize someone very special. Oh, sorry, Deb.
We did start late one time before.
Okay, that it wasn't all, was it under my leadership or was it Tom's?
I think it was Tom's.
Oh, good. Can I get an affidavit about that? So next, I want to recognize another very special friend and individual, and I saw his picture just a minute ago, so I think we have Perna on by Zoom as well. There he is, Perna. You're somewhere up north, I guess, right?
Yep.
Well, Perna Segurti his term has expired as a member of the inaugural Tennessee Tech Board of Trustees. Perna served with us from 2017 to 2020, and we have a plaque here for you, Perna. But again, I want to say something on a personal level. You have brought so much to this board, and you are such a, when I think of captains of industry, that's you, right? You are the guy, the mover and the shaker in this world, and you took your time and you put your energy into our school here that's also your alma mater, and the school will forever be changed because of it. I wish you could continue your turn, but I understand, and I'm a believer in the idea of seasons in life, and I believe that our university was at the right season to have you involved, and I'm so glad that you were here for this season. And I think you've changed the trajectory of this board and of this university. So I want to present you with this plaque, and then we will let you say a couple of words. It says, "With deep appreciation for your time, service, and dedication to Tennessee Tech University's Board of Trustees, Perna Segurti, Inaugural Board of Trustees, 2017 to 2020. And I need to actually stop and let Phil say something. I'm sure you'd like to say something to Perna as well, and then we'll let Perna respond.
Yeah, this one's hard for me, Perna. I hate to see you leave. You've meant so much to me personally over these last few years, and if the chair will allow, give me just a second. So I made a cold call on Perna. I think it was about 6 years ago now. A mutual friend introduced me to Perna's story, and I heard about this young man that came to Tennessee Tech from India to get a master's degree in chemical engineering, and then he was on the 50th floor of the Bank of America building in Manhattan, and I thought, I've got to hear this story. I got to know how that works. And so we contacted Perna's office, and he kindly agreed to meet me for lunch one day. So I did something really unusual. I flew to New York for lunch to meet Perna for the first time, and I remember sitting. You don't even know this, Perna. I was sitting across the street waiting for our appointment time there in Bryant Park, and it was a pretty day, and I thought, what in the world am I doing in Bryant Park going to meet somebody in the Bank of America building that I've never met before? And but he couldn't have been more gracious, and all of you had a chance to meet Perna in subsequent years. He was very gracious with his time then. He was very interested in what was going on at his alma mater. He's been very generous with his time and talents and resources since. And Perna, it's just been a great privilege for me to get to know you and hear your story personally, and it's a great story. And I think it's one that's very reflective of the nature of Tennessee Tech as an institution. And we're just really proud of you, and we're proud that you were able to be on the inaugural Board of Trustees. Thank you so much for your service.
Thank you, Trudy, and thank you, Phil. Those are very kind words, and I'm very gracious for that. Being invited to join the Board of Trustees of Tennessee Tech and serving on the board with all of you has been one of the greatest privileges of my life. I thank you for the opportunity to contribute back in a small way to the school that meant so much to me. I look forward to coming back to Cookeville and spending time with all of you and our students. I'm grateful that Tennessee Tech embraced and welcomed home and was a welcoming home for a 20-year-old that came from India to the United States. I will always treasure those memories. For me, the decision was very simple and very easy. When I heard that Deb Coombs was retiring, I knew it was time for me to leave the board also. So thank you, Deb. Thank you for everything that you've done for me and for the board. Phil, Trudy, Tom, rest of the board members, it's been a real pleasure, an honor, and I'm very grateful for that. Thank you very much. Be well.
Thank you. And no one else is ever allowed to leave. Is that the way it works now? So, and speaking of that, I'm not going to forget you, Mr. Lynn. It is now my pleasure to introduce Thomas Lynn, who has been appointed by Governor Lee to the Tennessee Tech Board of Trustees. Trustee Lynn is a lifelong native of Cookeville and a Tennessee Tech alumnus. He currently serves as the chairman of the board for First National Bank of Tennessee. Thomas received his BS in business management and his MBA. His father, wife, and all of his children except one son and his sister are all Tech alums. I made the mistake earlier of saying all of his children, and he had to correct me. One of them was a loser. I'm sorry. No, I didn't say that. No, one of them went to Samford. The Lynn family have been longtime supporters of the university, and now Thomas is going to continue that support in his new role as trustee, and we thank you so much for doing that, and I hope you'll make a few comments.
Thank you, Trudy. I didn't realize I was following such a giant. No one pointed that out to me, but Perna was a fantastic board member, I understand. I'll certainly welcome you, Phil, to come to the first floor of First National Bank in Jefferson Avenue when you have time. We'd be glad to talk about banking. But I'm looking forward to this. I certainly welcome the opportunity to serve, so I'm glad to be included. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now I also have the opportunity to announce some other good news. Governor Lee has reappointed Trustee Lowry and Trustee Wilmore to new 6-year terms, and both of them have accepted those appointments. And we're very grateful to Barry and to Fred for their willingness to continue to serve. You both are you bring very different and very important perspectives, as we saw throughout this morning's conversation. So we appreciate you. Do either of you all have anything you want to say?
It's good to be back.
Oh, good.
It's nice to be wanted. Happy to be here.
Thank you. And Fred, it's good to hear you. This morning we could see him, but we couldn't hear him. So thank you. And then in the spirit of thanking people, and Barry made just an impassioned thank you earlier, and I hope we got that recorded adequately, and I hope many of the faculty heard it. When Trustee Wilmore made some remarks about what a magnificent job our faculty has done and our students in pivoting in the spring with all of this COVID stuff, and how we've come together, and these faculty are making a tremendous difference in the lives of our students, and I think offering a great education. And we've talked so much because our faculty has been amazing. But I want to be sure today that I mention a few other categories of folks, and there's quite a few of them, but I want to mention some other categories of folks that, in addition to our faculty, have made this transition possible. The IT services folks, you've got some of those here. They're the ones making all this happen today. They had to help everybody as we rushed from classes to working from home. Back in the spring, they've provided all of the equipment. They've done all the support as we came back on campus this fall. It's been amazing. Facilities. I know you all know all of these things, but I just want to run through all of them because it's mind-boggling when you think about what had to happen to bring this together in the spring in particular, and then again in the fall. Facilities, we had campus safety. They had to lock down buildings. They had to provide keys to buildings where faculty needed access. They had to identify appropriate PPE. They purchased it, distributed that. They had to put up COVID-related campus signage, and then they had to prepare our campus for reopening. Human resources and payroll, I know we've got some of those folks here. They had to make sure everybody got paid during the pandemic. For some reason, our faculty and staff believed that was important, so they made sure everybody got paid. And they assisted employees with resources for health-related concerns, and they assisted employees with health-related accommodations. The Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning, I will be honest with you, I'd never heard of the CITL. If I had heard of it, I didn't understand what it was until the spring when I had to teach my class. One day I was teaching in person, and the next week I had to be online, and I found out about the CITL, who taught everyone to be online. That was one of the most amazing, and they were so helpful and so patient, because I know I was the lowest common denominator on the faculty. The Office of Communication and Marketing has provided information, updates, and guidance for the campus as we closed and reopened. They designed signage. They provide regular communications. Chartwells, who provided our lunch today, has been providing meals to students living on campus who were quarantined or in isolation. They had to redesign their venues for guidelines for safety to make sure everybody could return to campus. The Business Office and Financial Aid handles student refunds and disbursement of CARES funds to eligible students, and they did reports and accessed CARES fund information. Enrollment management, we heard a report from Dr. Johnson this morning, but they redesigned student orientation and registration, SOAR as we call that, sessions, to allow students, new students, an on-campus experience as they started their academic career at Tech. Health services, not the least of which. Health services, they were essential to our understanding the CDC and state guidelines. Leanne Ray was our go-to person for all questions COVID-related. She has provided guidance to the entire campus back before there was a quarantine and beyond. The testing for the campus, contact tracing, other health-related functions. Leanne and her staff have been doing all that in addition to just keeping people healthy. Purchasing, we've had folks who had to expedite purchasing of supplies, equipment, and licensing, so for us to go online and then also for us to reopen. Housing, designing and scheduling move out and move in to keep our students safe. Counseling service, we talked about this some today. They've provided telecounseling for students and employees during the lockdown. Service learning, we've had Meals on Wings to off-campus students in isolation and quarantine. Student affairs, we heard from Dr. Owens earlier, but they've redesigned student activities to meet COVID guidelines and still provide students with a good on-campus experience. And athletics, again, we heard from Mark, but testing athletes and providing support services to athletes that were isolated or quarantined. And I saved for the last, one of my personal favorites, the SSC group, who provides janitorial service and custodial services for us. I interact with these folks every day as I come and go in my teaching responsibilities, once a week anyway. And these are some of the most pleasant people on campus, and they have one of the hardest jobs. They are required to keep the campus safe, and they have to do emergency cleaning, deep cleaning of residential hall rooms for any student who's identified as positive, and before our students return to campus. So all of that, plus the president and his entire cabinet really deserve our thanks, in addition to, not instead of, but in addition to all the amazing faculty folks who are working so hard to make this possible. So join me in thanking all of those folks, please. Thank you all for indulging me. I'm sorry to have taken so much time, but I thought that was important because there's just so many groups. So now, one of my favorite parts, I guess my very favorite part of these meetings, is a spotlight on student and faculty excellence. And this time, for the first time ever, our student trustee is actually part of this spotlight. So I will start here. Text 2020 EagleWorks first and second place winners, Brantley Marie Medical Devices, Inc., formerly Intubation Nation, and Working Women Design Company, both advanced to the Launch TN 3686 statewide student competition as 2 of only 8 finalists. They competed virtually in August for $35,000 in awards. The event connects innovators, pioneers, investors, and visionaries to shape the business community of the future. Brantley Marine Medical Devices took second place and a $10,000 prize. Working Women Design Company also represented Tech very well. First and third place in this competition went to seasoned teams from Vanderbilt. Brantley Marie Medical Devices is led by students Libby Baldwin and our own student trustee, Daniel Hines. Guiding faculty members are also familiar to us: Melissa Geist, Robbie Sanders, and Andy Pardue, who shares the same last name as another one of our trustees. Annalicia Larson led Working Women Design Company along with faculty member Dennis Fennenwald. Daniel will ask you to share your experience and introduce your colleagues and faculty members, please.
Thank you so much. Can everybody hear me? Good afternoon, fellow board members and President Oldham. Back in the fall of 2019, one of my longtime friends and current now Tech alumna, Libby Baldwin, encouraged me to take a course offered through the nursing school called Clinical Immersions of Disciplinary Interfaces. This course was led by, as you just previously stated, Dr. Geist of the nursing school, Dr. Robbie Sanders, and Dr. Andy Pardue. In this course, pre-health students and nursing students worked in an interdisciplinary team with engineering students of all focuses to focus on a team-based identification of unmet medical needs and develop robust solutions. We began the course meeting at Cookeville Regional Medical Center, shadowing the nursing staff, providers, and techs on varying units to identify an unmet need in healthcare. While our time at Cookeville Regional provided us with a few needs, the problem identification was actually found while I was working at a hospital in Nashville in the emergency department. A patient presented to the emergency department in respiratory failure and needed to be intubated. For those non-medical people of the room, intubation is when a provider places a tube down a patient's throat to secure their airway that can breathe for them. While the physician was intubating, I noticed a recurring problem that I had recognized before that I believed could be improved upon. This problem was fluid buildup in the airway, causing timely and improper intubations. I brought this problem back to the team, and we began working feverishly to try and improve upon it. After weeks of customer interviews and discussions with our mentors and engineering students, we settled on a rough idea of how to solve the problem we had discovered: an endotracheal tube, suction-enabled stylet. We presented this idea to the class in our final presentation, which is when we were introduced to Michael Akins, who's the Director of Innovation and Entrepreneurship here at Tennessee Tech, Dr. David Adair, a retired OBGYN and co-founder of Solus BioAdventures in Chattanooga, and Jeff Brown, the president of the Biz Foundry here in Cookeville. Michael, Dr. Adair, and Jeff saw the potential of our idea and began mentoring us on the further development of our solution. Libby and I were selected to be a part of the Winter I-Corps cohort, giving us access to the National Science Foundation grant to provide further funding to develop our device. We are both biology majors, and getting a product to market and starting a business are not our specialty. So they encouraged us to secure our intellectual property and compete in the Tennessee Tech EagleWorks competition this last spring. Libby and I competed and were fortunate enough to win first place, giving us funds to kickstart our business and get the product into the hands of providers one day in the near future to save lives. In the midst of quarantine, over countless Zoom calls, Libby and I continued to meet with Michael, Dr. Adair, and Jeff, and kickstarted our company, Brantley Marie Medical Devices Incorporated. In July of this year, we competed in the 3686 Student Entrepreneurship Festival against teams from Vanderbilt, University of Tennessee at Knoxville, and the University of Memphis. And in this competition, we placed second, awarding us an additional $10,000 in grant money. As of today, we have secured our provisional patent and just launched our website. Our one goal when we started this back in October of 2019 was to make an impact on our community and our future patients' lives. None of our success would have been possible without the faculty and staff here at Tennessee Tech, specifically those I previously mentioned, who gave their time and their talents throughout this journey. We appreciate their assistance, along with Dr. Adair and Jeff Brown, in helping our new company achieve our primary goal: save lives one secured airway at a time. Are there any questions?
That's impressive.
Thank you.
I'm sure you've been asked this question many times before. Have you thought about Shark Tank?
Yeah, that has come across a few times. I don't think we're at that level yet, but
Yeah. Well, best of luck going forward.
thank you.
Very well done. We're very honored to have you as a member of our Board of Trustees.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I was supposed to mention, too, the next team that also competed in the 3686 competition, as well as EagleWorks here at Tennessee Tech, is Alicia and Dr. Finna Wall of the Working Women Design Company. And it should be noted that Anna Alicia is currently taking 23 hours this semester and is kickstarting her Working Women Design Company business that could possibly change how women do agriculture. But she took a break to be here to speak with us today.
Great. What's that? They're coming by Zoom, is that right? And by the way, I got to watch both of your presentations on, I guess it was a Zoom or some sort of a streaming thing, and very impressive.
This is Dennis.
There she is.
All right. I hope everybody can hear me. Hopefully.
Can you get a little closer to the mic, maybe?
Yeah. Is that better?
Yes.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Dr. Fenawal, did you want to start off by saying anything?
Sure. Well, I've just got a few things to say, and I know Anna Alicia, they just said you got 23 credit hours this semester. I've got to tell this group, Anna Alicia is one of the hardest working young ladies I've ever met. She's a concentration in agronomy and soils, but the interesting thing, she grew up in Lakeview, Michigan, and so on a fourth generation farm, and was one of the youngest of 8 girls. So I asked her, why'd you come to School of Agriculture? And she said she loved the size and she loved the family-like atmosphere. And so I asked her a few other questions, one of which she answered, I didn't compete in this challenge because I thought I could win. I competed to be an advocate for women in the ag industry and to be an advocate for myself during the rough time I was having. She's a hardworking lady, and she has done an incredible job. Second place in EagleWorks. She won Rural Reimagine and also won the Virgie Klaus Creativity Award. So I know she's busy. And Alicia, tell us about your project so you can get on with your 23 credit hours.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so I had decided to do EagleWorks. Originally, I was supposed to do the Ag Innovation Challenge, and then COVID had shut that down. So I wasn't able to actually compete, but I was encouraged to go on to EagleWorks. And I've had many experiences and opportunities throughout my 4 years here so far at Tech. And I can honestly say that one of the best things I've decided to do was to be a part of the EagleWorks competition. Going into this, I literally had no idea anything, like I had no idea how to create a business. I didn't know how to create pants. I didn't know anything about the fashion industry. I just knew that I had a problem and I was ready to solve it. So I used this opportunity to create a clothing brand meant for women in agriculture and other male-dominated industries to provide them with comfortable and affordable clothes that they could actually work in, and also be able to do other things. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the kind of clothes that we usually have to wear out in the fields, but usually they're very ugly and horrendous. So that was what I was trying to fix. And I was successfully able to make my first product through the competition. Now, I had never thought, like Dr. Fenewald had said, that I didn't really do this to win. I truly didn't know that I would win. I was doing it for an activity to keep myself busy. I was very stressed out and I needed an outlet. So I used this to be my outlet, and I had succeeded, I would like to say, and I'm very fortunate for that. But I did learn several other things in regards to just being part of this competition, and some things that weren't very much obvious at the time. And as I reflect now, I can really tell that I had so many different takeaways. One of which is being that the competition, like I used it as a way to find my voice, to be an advocate for women in agriculture. I think that was one of the biggest things that I absolutely love to do. And trying to find my voice and being able to voice my opinions is quite hard for me. Some people might beg to differ, but I sometimes shy away from speaking my opinion. So it was awesome to be able to find that and be able to do that. I learned also that it's pretty easy to come up with a lot of ideas. And I know me and Dr. Fenewald had talked about this, but executing those ideas is much, much harder. It takes a lot of dedication, and it takes, again, to find that voice inside you to speak up and be able to accomplish the things that you want to do. And lastly, I just have to say that my success at the Eagles Work competition is a pure reflection of this university and the School of Agriculture. Again, I am in agronomy and soils. I am not a business person. I am not a fashion merchandising person whatsoever. However, through the knowledge that I've gained from my classes and through my faculty at the department, I have been able to succeed in this competition. I've been able to use the things that I've learned outside of the competition, and hopefully I'll succeed this semester with my 23 credit hours. So, with all that said, I truly have enjoyed my experience with the competition, and I really do look forward to see next year's competition and seeing other students that might be in the department, in the ag department or not. But I'm really excited to see other businesses and to see where my business can go. So if anybody has any questions, I'm more than welcome to answer.
Very impressive, and I noted that we have our own woman in ag over here. Radonna Rose was writing down your name, so I bet she's going to be, she's also an advocate for women in ag, I'm sure, as well as just ag in general. So thanks to both of you. Dr. Fenewald, thank you, and to all the other faculty who were involved with the Brantley Marie, excuse me, that's what it is, right? Brantley Marie. Organizations. Congratulations to all of you. You all are the brightest and the best. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Radonna, if you haven't seen her presentation, you really should see her presentation. It's very good.
I'd like to.
I could tell. All right. Next on the agenda is we're going to get into our actual official business. We're going to have approval of minutes of our prior meeting. So I would entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the minutes.
Thank you.
Second.
Is there a second? Thank you. Is there any discussion about the minutes? Hearing none. I'll take a roll call vote, I believe. Is that right?
Correct.
Mr. Secretary.
Trustee Jones.
Aye.
Trustee Lowry.
Aye.
Trustee Lynn.
Yes.
Trustee Pardue.
Aye.
Trustee Rose,
Aye.
Trustee Stites, Trustee Van Hooser,
Aye.
Trustee Wilmore,
Aye.
and Chair Harper.
Aye.
The ayes have it, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. The motion carries. Our next item is another administrative item, and it involves Thomas Lynn, our newest trustee. With Trustee Segurti leaving the board, we have a vacancy now on our Audit and Business Committee, and the State Audit Guidelines and Policy 005 Board Committees require the board to nominate and approve members to that committee. So I'm proposing that we would appoint Thomas Lynn to serve on the Audit and Business Committee. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we do approve Thomas Lynn to serve on the Audit and Business Committee.
Wonderful. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Trustee Jones,
Aye.
Trustee Lowry,
Aye.
Trustee Lynn,
Abstain.
Trustee Pardue,
Aye.
Trustee Rose,
Aye.
Trustee Stites,
Aye.
Trustee Van Hooser,
Aye.
Trustee Wilmore,
Aye.
and Chair Harper.
Aye.
Unanimous, Madam Chairman, with one abstention.
Thank you. That motion carries. So congratulations, Thomas, and again, welcome, and thank you for being willing to serve on a very important committee. They're all important. Next, we'll have a rulemaking hearing, and I'm going to call to order the rulemaking hearing for Tennessee Technological University Rules 0240-09-01 on student conduct and 0240-09-08 on Title IX compliance. It is now 2:17, and I'm calling the hearing to order. If you're interested in providing comments, please sign in. I think Kelly has the sign-in sheet. Kelly is waving her hand back here, and indicate which rule you are wanting to comment on or to address. My name is Trudy Harper, and I'll be conducting the hearing. The hearing is being recorded, and Tennessee Tech will use the video recording as the record of the hearing. Tennessee Tech has made red-line versions of the rules available to persons in attendance for the purpose of the hearing, and and if anyone needs a copy of the red-line version of the rule, please raise your hand. I don't see anyone. So, now then, we will begin the hearing then for Rule 0240-09-01, Student Conduct. Dr. Catherine Williams, Dean of Students for Tennessee Tech, will provide us a rule summary.
Thank you, Chair Harper. A student conduct rule was previously approved by the Board of Trustees following a rulemaking hearing that was held in December 2019. The changes previously approved included revisions to add language that complies with the Student Due Process Protection Act of 2018, to change the standard for finding of a violation from clear and convincing to preponderance of the evidence, clarified provisions related to prohibited conduct and disciplinary holds on records, and added a provision related to the application of the rule to prospective students' pre-attendance conduct. Tennessee Tech did not file that rule immediately due to technical changes requested by the Office of Attorney General. Then, on May 6, 2020, the U.S. Department of Education published its final regulations related to Title IX. These new regulations, which went into effect August 14, 2020, made substantial changes to the institution's Title IX procedures and processes. These new federal regulations necessitated further revisions to the Student Conduct Rule. The Student Conduct Rule before the Board today is revised to remove references to sexual harassment and sexual misconduct that fall within the scope of Title IX. Title IX matters are addressed by a separate rule. The Board approved an emergency student conduct rule in its June 23, 2020 meeting. In order to meet the deadline of August 14, 2020, which was the federal implementation deadline. The rule before the Board today is the same as the emergency rule, except for a few subsequent minor revisions which address concerns that were raised about another university's rule with similar language. These changes are highlighted in a separate document in the diligent book under the tab name Subsequent Minor Revisions. I request approval of Rule 02400901, Student Conduct, with subsequent minor revisions.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Tennessee Tech will afford all interested parties present an opportunity to present facts, views, or arguments relative to Tennessee Tech's rule related to student conduct. Tennessee Tech has not received written comments on the rule. Have we received anyone, has anyone signed in, Kelry? No one has requested to speak to the board. So does anyone on the board then have questions or comments that they want to offer?
Just curious, what does it legally mean to change it to the preponderance of the evidence?
What does it really mean?
Yeah.
It lowers the standard that we previously had, which was clear and convincing. Preponderance is the greater weight of credible evidence, so 51% would be the appropriate benchmark.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the rule as presented with subsequent minor revisions.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? We'll take a roll call vote, Mr. Secretary.
Trustee Jones.
Aye.
Trustee Lowry.
Aye.
Trustee Lynn.
Aye.
Trustee Pardue.
Aye.
Trustee Rose.
Aye.
Trustee Stites.
Aye.
Trustee Van Hooser.
Aye.
Trustee Wilmore.
Aye.
Chair Harper.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you. That motion carries, and the hearing on Rule 0240-09-01 on student conduct is concluded. We'll now begin the hearing for Rule 0240-09-08 on Title IX compliance, and that hearing will begin now. If anyone hasn't signed in and wanted to sign in, please do so. And then Greg Holt, the compliance officer for Tennessee Tech, will provide a rule summary.
Chairman Harper, on May 6, 2020, the U.S. Department of Education published its final regulations related to Title IX sex discrimination and harassment procedures. These new regulations make substantial changes to procedures and processes used by institutions to address sexual harassment. Tennessee Tech's Title IX compliance rule tracks the federal regulation requirements closely. The rule's changes to procedures and processes used by Tennessee Tech to address sexual harassment include new frameworks for determining whether alleged sexual harassment occurs within the scope of Tennessee Tech's education program or activity, when Tennessee Tech has actual knowledge of sexual harassment, and when Tennessee Tech's response to sexual harassment would be considered to be deliberately indifferent. It also includes revisions to several key terms, including sexual harassment, sexual assault, stalking, and formal complaints, additional notification and publication responsibilities, greater emphasis on providing supportive measures to a complainant both before and after the filing of a formal complaint, and increased constitutional and due process protections, including live hearings with the right to cross-examine witnesses and the other party. The board approved an emergency Title IX compliance rule at its June 23, 2020 meeting in order to meet the August 14, 2020 federal implementation deadline. The rule is the same as the emergency rule and will become the permanent rule. In addition, Madam Chairman, I have some comments that I received, written comments I'd like to go through as well. First comment. The rules should not reference the disciplinary sanctions contained in Tennessee Tech Policy 302, student conduct, because the hearing officer does not apply these same sanctions upon a determination of responsibility. Our response: complaints of sexual misconduct against a student respondent that fall within the definition of sexual harassment under Title IX regulations are not handled through Tennessee Tech student conduct process, but under Title IX grievance procedures. Following a determination of responsibility, a hearing officer applies the sanctions contained in an institution's student code of conduct against a student respondent. Title IX regulations require institutions to describe the range of possible disciplinary sanctions that may be imposed upon a respondent following a determination of responsibility. Describing the range of sanctions within the rule is necessary to comply with Title IX regulations. Another comment, the rule should not include sexual assault, stalking, domestic violence, or dating violence under the definition of sexual harassment. Our response, under Title IX regulations, sexual harassment does include sexual assault, stalking, domestic violence, and dating violence. The staff recommends that Tennessee Tech decline to remove these terms from the statutory definition of sexual harassment.
Mr. Holt, before you move on, I just want to make sure the board members know that all these comments are diligent. If you're trying to follow along, it's a little bit easier to read them. As you're reading them out loud, we can read along, just making sure people know.
Yes. These are two comments that are basically very similar. The first is the rule should state that complainant and respondent, which are the parties, are allowed to have more than one person with them at the formal hearing. A second comment is the parties should be provided the opportunity to have a silent support person in addition to their advisor present at all Title IX meetings, the live hearing, and any related appearances. Staff's response. Title IX regulations state that a hearing officer must allow each party to have an advisor present at the formal hearing to ask the other party and any witnesses all relevant questions and follow-up questions, including those challenging credibility. If a party does not have an advisor present at the formal hearing, an institution must provide, without fee or charge to that party, an advisor of the institution's choice to conduct cross-examination on behalf of that party. The regulations consistently reference advisor in the singular. For this reason, the staff recommends that Tennessee Tech decline to revise the rule as requested. And Madam Chairman, I would request approval of Title IX Compliance Rule 0240-09-08.
Thank you, Mr. Holt. We will afford all interested parties present an opportunity to present facts, views, or arguments relative to Tennessee Tech's rule related to Title IX compliance. We've received the written comments that Mr. Holt addressed in his remarks. Kelly, have we had any requests for verbal comments? Okay. No one else has signed in. So now I would ask for, first, is there any discussion among the board about the rule as it is proposed?
Yes, I have a question. On the last two comments, I understand that it does refer to an advisor in the singular, but is it true there's nothing in the regulations that precludes an additional person?
I'm sorry.
I mean, it says they must have an advisor, but it doesn't say that there can't be other people present. Is that true?
It doesn't say that there can be other people present as well. Throughout the regulation, it only talks about an advisor. It never mentions anyone else at the hearing or anyone else at the level. So because it consistently talks about an advisor, it's being read, and this is what I understand from the commentary, as you can have only one person present, at least at the hearing level. There's nothing that indicates that you can have more than one person.
But there's nothing that indicates that you can't have more than one person, is there?
No, it's just consistently an advisor. Part of, if I may, Trustee Jones, part of the issue too, as far as the hearing would be, if you had more than one person, they would be able to, hear testimony of the parties. And there's a large part of confidentiality in FERPA involved. That potentially, now pretending to think what Congress had in mind or the Department of Education, but that could present a potential problem to have other parties present during a hearing.
That to me is a better answer than what's written here as a response, because I could understand a desire to have another person there. But I would imagine, I guess, just for the benefit of confidentiality, that makes sense to me.
Thank you for that. Are there other questions? That's a good discussion. Are there other questions or comments? Anyone else want to offer any observations? Otherwise, then I would ask for a motion to approve the rule as presented after due consideration of comments received.
I move the board approve Rule 0240-09-08 Title IX compliance as presented after the due consideration of the public comments.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll have a roll call vote.
Trustee Jones.
Aye.
Trustee Lowry.
Aye.
Trustee Lynn. Trustee Purdue.
Aye.
Trustee Rose.
Aye.
Trustee Stikes.
Aye.
Trustee Van Hooser.
Aye.
Trustee Wilmore.
Aye.
Trustee Harper.
Aye.
Unanimous vote, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. The motion carries and the rule is approved as presented after due consideration of the comments. And the hearing on Rule 0240-09-08 Title IX compliance is concluded. Thank you, Mr. Holt. And Mr. Lynn, I think you should have to sit through 2 more sets of those, since that was our 3rd hearing on Title IX. And it's an incredibly important rule, so I don't want to make light of that. But boy, we've had a lot of Title IX this year, so I'm glad to have it. Hopefully this one we won't be making more changes. We don't see any changes coming, right? Okay. Dr. Oldham, I think we're ready for your report.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and board members. It's always great to have you on campus, even though I can't see your faces. It's great to have you here, and really do appreciate all that you do on behalf of Tennessee Tech. We've already made several acknowledgments, and so I won't belabor this, but I do want to publicly add my thanks to Perna for his years of service to the board and to Tennessee Tech. I also want to express my great appreciation to Trustees Wilmore and Lowry for their willingness to re-sign up, I guess, for a 6-year term. That's a tremendous commitment, and I know you're both very busy. As we also welcome Thomas joining us to the board. Thomas, welcome. And I'll just say, no pressure, but you're joining the best board among all universities in the state of Tennessee. So no pressure at all, but welcome.
Okay.
And I also want to say my word of thanks and congratulations to Deb Combs for her years of service to Tennessee Tech and her service to this Board of Trustees. She's served very admirably and capably, and we will definitely miss her. But we're better for her effort. So thanks to Deb. So I stand before you this afternoon, and I'm really delighted, and I say that very sincerely because based on what challenges we've faced over the last few months, to be able to stand here today, even like this, is a tremendous accomplishment, and I'm very delighted to report that Tennessee Tech is in a strong and very enviable position within the state of Tennessee. And you've heard some of those data points already this morning in committee, and I'll probably go back over some of those things just to reemphasize that. But this campus and everybody a part of this campus continues to work very, very hard each and every day. And I'm most excited about the fact that their driving emphasis each and every day is to put students first. Put students first in everything that we do. That's what we think about in every decision and implementation of every strategy, what's in it for the students and what's important for them. So I want to thank the faculty, first of all. I want to thank the staff, and I also want to thank the students for their behavior and actions during this really challenging time. We certainly have all pulled together to make this work. I'm really proud of the efforts and attitudes really of each person on this campus who makes up the Tennessee Tech family. They have set an incredible example as they do in so many things for others to follow. We continue to be very thoughtful and persistent with our planning, and we are clearly having a measurable success with that approach. So I think we all should feel very encouraged and gratified by that. So what have we done, or what are we doing that has produced our successful results so far? And I really want to emphasize so far, because we're still in the middle of this thing, and it continues, the challenges continue. But what are we doing that seems to be working? Well, let's address the COVID-19 situation in particular. Literally thousands of hours have been invested in changing class materials, class delivery in over 2,000 class sections since last spring. So a big thank you. We've already recognized the Center for Innovation in Teaching and Learning, CITL, for their assistance. A great deal of credit goes to them, as well as the hundreds of faculty that have invested so much of their time. But somewhat behind the scenes, and bear with me because this will take just a minute, but I want you to hear some of these numbers that I'm going to go over right now, because behind the scenes, the things that have had to happen on this campus for us to be in this position. Some 1,200 plexiglass barriers have been constructed and put into place. 350 medical-grade HEPA air purifiers with UV lights have been installed and placed around campus. 60 hand sanitizing refill stations, 200 point-of-use dispensers at building entrances, and portable bottles for hand sanitizer to every staff and student. Face masks have been distributed all over campus. 2 masks distributed to every staff and student. 710 humanity shields, 200 communicator shields, 185 performance masks for the music department, and 105 bell covers for music instruments, things that you would have never thought about before this happened. 500 social distance floor stickers in, of course, purple and gold, plus 500 generic social distance floor stickers around campus. 250 entrance and exit signs for buildings to route pedestrian traffic in and out of buildings. 15 wall-mounted no-touch temperature stations. 6 floor-mounted no-touch temperature stations in high-traffic areas on campus. 140 non-contact water faucets installed in restrooms across campus. 150 no-touch paper towel dispensers. We've distributed approximately 15,000 disposable masks, one-time use masks, since March. I don't know how many disinfecting wipes and containers we've placed around campus, an untold number. We've doubled the amount of fresh air delivery inside the indoor spaces by adjusting HVAC systems on campus so that we have more fresh air inside. As has been reported earlier, we've moved desks and furniture to allow more social distancing in all classrooms, auditoriums, offices, and meeting spaces. Extra and thorough cleaning in our cleaning services. Chair Harper recognized SSC. They've done a fantastic job of keeping our spaces clean and disinfected. We've added quarantine space and maintained quarantine space in residence halls. A fully stocked food pantry to support those sick or in quarantine? How do you handle those that have to be isolated for 14 days at a time? How do you support them with appropriate food? So food pantry has been a big deal. Special packaging and delivery by dining services. We enjoyed a box lunch today that's a great example of unique ways of delivering food on campus that we've had to adjust to. And of course, all this is on top of the vast amount of on-site testing that we've been doing, along with contact tracing through health services staff, as well as our human resources staff. So I hope that sinks in a little bit about the magnitude of what we've been having to deal with and the great, incredible effort that has been expended by the great people here at Tennessee Tech to make that all come together in a way that keeps us operational, functional, and continues to put students first in everything that we do. So I just want to say thank you to this entire campus and everybody that's been involved in making this happen. And if you would join me in a round of applause for the campus. As it was noted previously by Provost Bruce, a recent campus survey in which over 2,600 students responded, so a very good response rate, and some 375 faculty participated as well. The students and faculty, although their perspectives were a little different, they overwhelmingly expressed their general satisfaction with the delivery and support of this fall's classes. That really speaks volumes to not only the effort that was expended, but the results. As imperfect as we may be, we are doing some things right. We are doing some things well. But as I indicated, this is not over, and we've got to continue to be vigilant each and every day. We continue our commitment and our persistence to make sure we stay in this enviable position. But as much as that has drawn our attention over the last few months to get us where we are today, it's really important that we continue to move forward. And that's where our focus is how do you keep the momentum going to serve students not only that are here today, but those future students that are coming and hopefully come in larger and larger numbers. So despite this pandemic, Tennessee Tech is moving forward and moving forward very strongly in spite of this pandemic-related challenges. We're going to continue to improve our position within higher education. And so I'm going to try to, there we go. So I want to point out a few things, and I'll draw your attention to this slide in just a minute. Probably our greatest news recently is the improvement in our overall graduation rate. We talked about that briefly this morning. And I talked to the board, I guess over the last 2 years when we talked about graduation rates. The national standard for graduation rate is to look at a 6-year rate. So it's, and I know that sounds kind of odd to most of you because, I mean, we think of being able to graduate in 4 years. It's a 4-year degree program for a bachelor's degree. The national standard is 1.5 times the normal, what you would consider to be the normal time to earn a degree. And so nationally, we would compare ourselves by a 6-year rate. We've really tried over the last couple of years to change the focus on this campus to not focus on the 6-year rate, but really get back to a 4-year rate. How do we get more students to graduate in 4 years? Because we know that benefits them substantially by reducing the cost of an education, which obviously is of great interest nationally, reducing student loan debt, but also gets them into the workforce quicker. And so their career earning capacity increases substantially. So tracking back to a baseline of 2012, our 4-year graduation rate was about 25%. So only about 1 out of 4 freshmen that entered at that time would graduate from Tennessee Tech within 4 academic years. And you see the progress that we've made over that time period. It's actually pretty linear improvement. But this has not been accidental, I can assure you. This has been with a lot of forethought and thoughtfulness. But to hit, for this year, the first time ever, a 40% four-year graduation rate, which I'm pretty sure is one of the highest, probably second highest four-year graduation rates in the state among public universities, is really, really substantial and a great compliment to the institution. But let me tell you what it means, and I mentioned this morning, but I had Dr. Stevens and Dr. DeFurio in the College of Business do a quick economic impact analysis of this. So going from 25% four-year graduation rate to a 40% graduation rate, that's approximately 277 more students that are finishing at least a year sooner than they would have previously. The average cost of a year of college with our tuition and typical living expenses is close to $25,000. So you're saving them about $25,000 each, and getting them into the workforce a year earlier. The average starting salaries are in the $50,000 range, mid $50,000 range. So that's about a $75,000 direct economic benefit to each one of those students by graduating a year sooner. Since you have 277 of them, the math is pretty simple. That's approximately a $20 million total economic impact to that cohort of students, and that's annual. That's each year that we are having a positive economic impact to nearly 300 students to a total sum of nearly $20 million. That's what that really means. It's not just graduating them sooner because we want to. It's really making a difference. And so great compliments to everybody who's helped make that happen. As we've also indicated, our enrollment numbers are strong this year. With what we've had to deal with, this is exceptional. We were really bracing for an enrollment decline, and many institutions in the state have realized that possibility. We sort of bucked the trend here. We saw about a 0.5% overall enrollment increase, primarily driven by a large increase in graduate students. We saw about a 20% increase in graduate enrollment, something that probably wasn't very predictable by anybody, but we're blessed by that and we're encouraged by that. Some other numbers in here that are quite remarkable too. We graduated another large group of students back in the spring. Of course, we postponed commencement till August, but we graduated just short of 2,500 students again this year. One thing of note there is we graduated 32 PhD students. That's a record high for Tennessee Tech. That's at least double, if not nearly triple, what it was 7 or 8 years ago. So our graduate programs continue to grow, particularly at the doctoral level. And we saw a strong freshman class this year, not only in number, slightly up from last year, but also academically very strong with an average ACT of 24.2. So those numbers look very good. We surpassed $20 million for the second year in a row in research funding. Those are awards. Dr. Taylor gave you a brief report on how research was doing on campus in the committee this morning. So we're seeing continual growth in research activity on campus and funding levels. We've set a very high goal by 2025 to double that to $40 million in funded research, so we've still got a lot of work to do. But a lot of good things are happening. Particularly, it's very encouraging to know that this is happening even in the midst of COVID-19 and the extra demands that are being placed on faculty teaching-wise under these conditions. We just had a new economic impact study done for the campus. The total economic impact across the state of Tennessee is over $1.5 billion annually, based on what we're doing here at Tennessee Tech. To the Upper Cumberland region, it's about half that, so a large local, regional economic impact, but statewide, we're well over $1.5 billion annually. So we make a difference economically to our state and our region. So let's take a quick look at how we compare to peer institutions, other institutions around the country. And I know for the board members, I think there's a little flyer in your materials that kind of highlight this as well. But I'll just kind of highlight a few of these things. You see that we rank really well in all these kind of national rankings: Money Magazine, U.S. News and World Report, Pay Scale, and others. The one I think I'm probably most proud of, aside from the return on investment I think is outstanding, and it points to the value proposition of an education at Tennessee Tech, and I think that's the one that I look to the most. But just so you understand, because there's a lot of U.S. News and World Report rankings in best colleges, and there are different categories. I just want you to understand that we are in the national category. So we're in the same category with the Harvards and the Stanfords and the University of Tennessee's and the Auburns and all the big players that you typically think of. And so to be one of only 3 ranked Tennessee public universities in that national category in the state of Tennessee puts us in very good company, and something to really be proud of. We have in U.S. News and World Report, we have 136 best public universities in the national rankings. Obviously, we want to aspire to do even better than that, but for the first time, our computer science department was ranked number 154 nationally, and that's out of thousands of universities with similar programs. So we're second highest in first-year retention rate, this is in Tennessee, second highest in graduation rate, second highest average alumni giving rate, and second highest average salary, starting salary. Well, actually, this is early career salaries among public and private institutions within the state of Tennessee, and that's second only to Vanderbilt. So we're doing really well. We're serving our students exceptionally well. They're getting a great value for their educational dollar, and that's where we want to continue to be. So as I close, a few additional things. One has already been mentioned as well. Dr. Rob Owens mentioned the fact that over the summer I appointed a racial diversity task force headed by Dr. Rob Owens. I've met with various groups of black students, faculty, and staff. I've listened and am certainly understanding some of their concerns. I've instructed each of the vice presidents to meet with their respective divisions to openly discuss diversity and racial equity concerns. I continue to reemphasize our institutional commitment, and that starts at the board, and you as a board have been very clear in your support of racial diversity on Tennessee Tech's campus, and I appreciate that greatly. So I continue to reemphasize our efforts and our commitment with racial equity, and to continue to establish a pervasive culture of acceptance on this campus. I think we're making great progress, but we have a lot of work to do. I look forward to hearing back from Dr. Owens and that task force with their recommendations, hopefully in the next few days. We do continue to develop Tennessee's and the nation's leaders of tomorrow. The plan, the vision, the persistence and dedication of these faculty and staff blend together to elevate the lives of our students. And our students are so incredibly committed. They're focused and on path. They seem to understand the future that they want, and they also seem to appreciate how their university can help them get there. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. This is a very challenging time for all of us. But it's also a historic moment. An obstacle, some would say, but I just see this as part of what we do in life. We face what comes, and we make our lives and the lives of others better for it. This is what we do at Tennessee Tech. This is what we teach our students to do: how to face challenges, how to persist, how to make the world a better place no matter what the circumstances may be, how to make a difference. For most of us, college, as we look back in hindsight, college was that very special point in time, sort of the transition between the life that created us to the life that we all in turn have a chance to create for ourselves and others. Tennessee Tech is currently producing approximately 2,500 graduates every year who I would say are well prepared to create that life for themselves, their families, and future generations. We, and I mean that very broadly, we as a campus community are collectively engaged in a most noble endeavor. And although imperfect, we are doing a lot of things well despite the unique challenges of our day. Again, I want to thank this wonderful board, and most of all, thanks to the faculty, staff, and students for their hard work, commitment, and positive can-do attitudes. We continue to show the world how to live every day wings up. So thank you. I'll be glad to take any questions the board may have.
Anyone have questions for President Oldham?
Yeah, just one, I guess. So part of the mother in me is with concerns about students who are impacted by the COVID and are isolated, and so I see the university doing everything they can from the standpoint of the isolation. There's a lot of basic needs, emotional needs revolving around those students, and so who's kind of the point person or organization that's handling that kind of responsibility?
Yeah, I would say it's a lot of people, actually. I'll point out some key offices, individuals who are really involved in it. Student Affairs, the Division of Student Affairs is very engaged in this, and whether it's through Student Health Services, who routinely checks on the health status of students that are in isolation, but it's also Dining Services, who is providing meals for those students that live on campus, actually taking food to their rooms to make sure that they've got what they need. We have, through student services as well, we have food pantry that helps with that, checking on students. We have counseling services that would be checking on students in isolation. Obviously, if they're isolated on campus, typically they're in a residence hall, and so the residence hall staff is doing that as well. We have noticed that quite a few, not all, but a lot of students who either test positive or have direct contact and need to be isolated choose to go home for that period of time because they're more comfortable at home, and many of them live within short distance from campus, and so that seems to work out well for them. But those that can't, we've been taking pretty good care of them. But your point is really well taken, and I've been very concerned about those, just the cabin fever effect of being isolated and stuck in a room for long periods of time. And we've looked at some ways of helping them with exercises that they can do in their room and other ways of keeping them engaged, making sure that they have the technology that they need. And it's a challenge. There's no question about it. And I can't honestly say that there hasn't been somebody that's been missed. But I think we've got a pretty good system in place, and we got a lot of good people that are checking on them.
Have we had any serious cases from COVID alone, like hospitalization for any of our students?
To my knowledge, and I could be wrong, but to my knowledge, we've had no students hospitalized with COVID. I know that we've had some faculty, staff, a few isolated cases that have had to either have a short visit at a hospital. I'm not sure of any serious complications at this point.
I would assume that we have some means to check on these individuals
Yes.
that have issues, and we would transport them where they needed to be, I'm assuming.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Okay.
I do have a question. The 40% goal, I think, is just fantastic. How does that compare to other state schools, state public schools in Tennessee?
It will vary quite a bit. Large flagship state universities would probably have a 4-year graduation rate in the 40s. Most regional public universities would be more like we were 8 years ago, probably down in the 20s, probably not above 30%. So with that particular metric, we're probably much more similar to a major flagship public university campus than a regional.
And then a kind of a follow-up, because I am totally supportive of getting the students out timely, and I do think it makes a huge difference economically for them. But is there some sort of an allowance if the student does an internship or takes a year off to actually go work at a company somewhere and then come back?
Actually, and we do encourage internships and co-ops. I mean, that's something I want to continue to encourage. And so in terms of the data, there's no allowance for that. I mean, when we track this, it's all freshmen that start a given year and how many of them have graduated within 4 or 5 or 6 years. And so if a student takes a year internship somewhere or a co-op, obviously they, instead of a 4-year graduation rate, they may show up in the 5-year or the 6-year. So again, we know we have a lot of that going on campus, and we want to encourage it. So there probably is a ceiling of how high we can get the 4-year graduation rate because of these other good things that are happening, and we don't want to discourage students from doing that. So I think the bottom line for me is, are we helping students graduate sooner than they would have normally? Are they getting what they need? Are they well prepared to enter the workforce? And whether it's 4 years, 5 years, or 6 years, what's right for them. I think in general, though, if our graduation rates continue to improve, we're showing that the effectiveness of what we're doing on campus is paying off for students. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir. Very good. Thank you.
Dr. Oldham, did that pay scale, those two stats, did that surprise you when you saw that the first time?
In what way?
Number one in the state for career pay, early career and mid-career pay.
No, it really didn't. And we've been in that position for the last few years, actually. That's nothing new. Some of that, quite honestly, is due to the distribution of programs we have on campus, the fact that we are graduating students in technology-related disciplines like engineering or the sciences. They generally will have higher career at least early career entry salaries than, say, a liberal arts institution that's predominantly graduating students in arts and humanities disciplines. And so the fact that we're doing it, but the fact that our students are being very successful, I think point to the fact that, again, we're doing a really good job with what we're doing. So, again, I want to push that value proposition even further here at Tennessee Tech, because ultimately we're here to make a difference. We're here to serve students and help them reach their career goals, and those are the kind of metrics that help us know if we're reaching those milestones or not.
It's also the kind of metrics you want prospective students seeing before they make a selection, and their parents seeing.
Yeah.
The parents don't want them back in their basements, so having a good salary would be a good way to keep that from happening.
Yeah, so just anecdotally, you hear so much in the national media about students graduating with large amounts of student loan debt, and they can't get a good paying job. They're having to wait tables or drive Uber or whatever to make ends meet, and they're in default in their student loans, and that's not the case here at Tennessee Tech. I mean, in fact, we're on the total opposite end of that spectrum. Graduates here are in demand. They get good jobs. We have a very low loan default rate, extremely low. And our graduates leave with about the lowest student loan debt in the Southeast. So that's a very good story to tell.
Oh, one final question on that. These students, we're not talking about just the pay they receive in Tennessee, but it's wherever they end up. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Dr. Oldham? It was an amazing presentation, given the context especially, but in the absolute, it was an amazing presentation, so thank you.
Thanks.
And thank you for the presentation this morning about the engineering building. We're very excited about that. You do still have, are there 6 engineers on the board of 10 now? We did have 7, and we swapped Perna for Thomas. So Thomas, we're sorry for your luck that you're still surrounded by a majority of engineers, but
Don't let her push you around, Thomas.
thank you again, Dr. Oldham. I will give the executive committee, oh no, excuse me, I'm sorry, I have several other things. I need to do a couple of reports for you all, or one report anyway. I need to report to you on a matter of the Ohio Valley Conference. So let me just remind everybody, we've been through this a couple of times before. The Ohio Valley Conference requires the chair of the board to attest that the president is responsible for the administration of the athletics program, that he has the support of the board in operating a program of integrity, and that he may vote on behalf of the institution on NCAA and OVC matters. I need to report to you that I have provided that attestation to the NCAA, and I believe it's posted in the board book. Anyone have any questions about that? All right, thank you. Next, we'll take the consent agenda, which involves the TTU policy 511.1, 511.2. Those were related to fees, charges, refunds and adjustments, student fee adjustments, refunds and appeals, and then TTU policy 144 on Title IX, and then a tenure recommendation. I'd entertain a motion to approve all the items on the consent agenda.
I move the board approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a second?
Second.
Johnny seconds. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call. Excuse me, by the way, I do this in my class every day. I wear one of those shields. I keep hitting my shield because I wave my hands around. Sorry. I'll take a roll call vote.
Trustee Jones.
Aye.
Trustee Lowry.
Aye.
Trustee Lynn.
Aye.
Trustee Pardue.
Aye.
Trustee Rose.
Aye.
Trustee Stites.
Aye.
Trustee Van Hooser.
Aye.
Trustee Wilmore.
Aye.
Chair Harper.
Aye.
Unanimous. Oh, yes. No, you don't. Never mind. Sorry to call on the student, but we already know that's a bad thing to do.
I'm sorry?
Nothing. I started to call on the student to vote, but we already know that's a bad thing to do.
That's a bad program, right?
Yes.
Sorry, Daniel.
Unanimous vote.
Thank you. That motion carries. And by the way, Daniel, we're very glad you're here. I think I've said that already, but I'm going to say it one more time. I will give the executive committee report. We met this morning first thing, and we took several actions that I will just report now to the board. First, we approved a temporary part-time continuation of employment for University Counsel Kay Carpenter, who retired earlier during the summer and is now employed on a temporary part-time basis, working for the president as University Counsel until a full-time general counsel is hired and we no longer need an overlap period. So the executive committee needed to approve that since it's a direct report to the president, and we did that this morning. We heard a report from Vice Chair Van Hooser on the status of the President's performance review, which is now complete, and we all believe that that went well. And thank you again, Vice Chair Van Hooser. And we discussed this morning a need for a comprehensive review of the President. I'll just remind everyone that under the procedures for President's performance reviews and comprehensive reviews, that requires the following. 2 years after the first annual assessment of the President is conducted, the Executive Committee should consider whether or not to perform a comprehensive review of the President's performance in a subsequent year. We discussed this in February. We decided again this morning that we would not do that right now, but we have asked Lee Ray to at least interview and perhaps put together, or maybe not interview, but at least put together a few candidates for us for a firm or a business that might give us some support in such a comprehensive review that we might do in the future. And then lastly, on the executive committee, I'll just report that we have a board self-evaluation questionnaire and schedule that's in board books. The questions are in board books. Lee, let me just make sure I understand this. You will be sending that out as a questionnaire, correct? We don't answer this one that's in the board books. That was just for us to look at the questions.
This one is just for you to look at the questions, but we will put this in the book, and it will be under questionnaires.
Right.
So you'll do this like you did the President's evaluation.
And you'll send us an email with the information about how to do that.
Correct.
Somebody will.
Yes,
Somebody
we will.
send us.
We'll do that.
And just to remind everybody, that will be due on October 21st, so be sure and be watching your calendar because we don't want to miss your opportunity to provide input on the board self-evaluation. And Ms. Rose, we'll call on you next for a report on the Academic and Student Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Chairman Harper. The Academic Student Affairs Committee had a working lunch meeting today that included a review of the campus response to the COVID-19. It was, today's meeting was for informational purposes only. We didn't take any action on any motion or issues, but we did hear some really good reports related to enrollment, to academic affairs, to athletics, student affairs, advancement, and research. That's it.
Thank you, and thanks again to those of you who presented this morning. I didn't get to thank you adequately. We rushed through some of those, particularly the later ones in that presentation, but that was excellent information, and I apologize for putting you all in a time pinch. Now we'll have a report from the Audit and Business Committee, Mr. Stites.
Thank you, Chair Harper. We had a rather lengthy meeting this morning. One of the things we covered was financial update, where the Audit and Business Committee received an update on the university's operating budget as well as capital projects. Fall enrollments were better than July proposed budget projections. Budget reductions have been made to the operating budget consistent with the plans presented at the June board meeting. The committee received an update on the THEC's recommendation for construction dollars for the new engineering building for fiscal year 2021 and 2022. The committee also received informational plans to construct a new residential hall on the west side of campus in the vicinity of the new engineering building. The residential hall will be constructed with revenue bonds that will be repaid from the rental revenues of the facility. A second item we covered was employee performance evaluation analysis. The committee received an update on the employee performance evaluation outcomes for the latest review period. Performance evaluation for both the faculty and non-faculty employees showed a slight increase in the number of employees rated as high performers. The evaluation outcomes continue to align with expectations for awarding merit pay when funds are available for salary increases. We did discuss innumerable times how important it was for the evaluations to be consistent across the campus and for them to be evaluations to be fair and reasonable from everybody's perspective. The engineering building design presentation was the third item we took up. The committee received an early design preview of the new engineering building from Bauer, Askew, and Upland Design, the project architects, and there's no action required on any of these items, just for your information. It's what we talked about. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone have any comments or questions? I should have asked the same about the academic and student affairs. Anyone have any questions or comments? There was a lot of discussion this morning in both of those meetings, and really very positive feedback, I think, across the board for both of your committees.
I have just a general comment. I don't know when the appropriate time is to make it.
Great.
I mean, just since I've been on this board, the budget's always a challenge, and we've seen enrollments up and down. We're dealing with COVID. You know, the university has done an incredible job, I think, dealing with the pandemic and all the expense to do so. But at the same time, while we're investing in buildings, we're investing in PPE, we're investing in computers and technology to deliver online courses. My feeling is that the faculty are more or less having to do more with less to deal with in-classroom, online, and at the same time, because of tight budgets, there's no raises. So, you know, not as a board action, but just for me, well, I don't know, anyone can chime in, I suppose, but I would really like to encourage Dr. Oldham to take some action to prepare for bonuses or something to acknowledge and reward the faculty, because they're the ones that make this university work. They are, you know, I mean, to me, I've said it before, it's the tip of the spear. They are the ones that deliver the education to the students, and they are our most valuable asset, and I want you to invest in that asset.
And I've had similar conversations with Dr. Oldham, so you want to respond?
Yes, and that's exactly where I want to go. I'm hopeful that in the next few weeks we'll be able to sharpen a pencil and see what we can come up with, because my heart's in the same place. Absolutely.
Very good. Thank you for making that comment, because I wholeheartedly agree. Are there other comments or questions or concerns? We have, I think, just one more agenda item officially, and that is that we have a reminder of our next regular meeting date, Tuesday, December the 1st. And then our dates for next year have been set as Thursday. They're all Thursdays, March 11th, June 24th, September 23rd, and December 2nd. So go ahead and get those on your calendar. Are there anything else to come before the board? Well, thank you all again. I really appreciate all of you who have come in person, because I think this was a lot more effective, and it probably led to a longer meeting this morning, but I appreciate it. Thank you all again. I look forward to seeing you on Tuesday, December 1st, and hopefully with more good news. I will call us adjourned.